Hey y'all, how y'all feeling today? It feels so good to be back. It takes so much strength and courage to do this. My thoughts is always trying to talk me out of this. My body is weak. It never wants to do anything. And my spirit is just crying for help because it wants to do so much. If you have that constant battle between your mind, your body, and your soul, just type in the comments. That's me, girl, that's me. Y'all ready? All right, let's go. Welcome to the Trilly Show. This is the healing series, and today's message is the love of thyself. Can I let y'all in on a little secret? This episode is more for me than it is for you. Because, woo, I didn't know self, and I definitely didn't know love. So, how could I know self love? And I feel like to know them separately is to know them together. If I had to describe one of the main chapters in my life right now, self love would definitely be one of them. I am currently reparenting myself, learning how to be alone, and building my relationship with God. So here's my quick little backstory. Growing up as a little girl, I was very emotional, I was very fragile, and my heart was so precious. And I cried a lot. And a lot of the emotions that I felt, I had to go through alone because I didn't have no one to confide in. I do wish my caregivers was way more attentive, but looking back, they were heartbroken as well. So I don't necessarily blame them till this day because I learned to forgive them, and that's something that we're going to talk about in another episode: learning to forgive our parents and how that could help us love ourselves more. But going through all of these things alone, it just made me very, very angry. And I feel like this anger manifested into codependency. It manifested into being a people pleaser, a serial dater, and it just turned my life upside down. I went through so much as a little girl, as a teenager, and definitely in my early 20s. So now in my late 20s, I'm learning how to love myself. I'm learning how to love others, and I'm learning how to be authentic in that. So this episode is basically something that is needed for me more than it's probably needed for anybody. But I hope that we could, come together on this and help each other learn to love ourselves. So, first, I want to talk about codependency because this is, quite frankly, the main theme of the last 10 to 15 years of my life. A lot of the things I went through, a lot of the things I did took place because I was very codependent. So, let's actually describe codependency and what some of those traits look like because this is very important. Codependency is usually the tie that bonds two people together. What you might think is love is two people desperately needing a void fulfilled, or even one person needing a void fulfilled and going out into the world and using people to get those voids fulfilled, or using things to get those voids fulfilled. If you cannot fulfill your own needs and be content on your own, being dependent on someone else to do those things and make you happy is always a recipe for disaster. Even if you meet someone who wants to do those things for you, you still won't be fulfilled because it's but so much that person can do for you. And eventually they'll start pouring from an empty cup. And you really should never put your happiness on the other side of success and on the other side of someone else's actions. So some of the traits that you can find in codependency is external validation needed, fear of abandonment, not knowing how to be alone, deprioritizing your own needs, the needs to prove yourself or be seen, difficulty setting boundaries, trying to control, change, or fix someone, addiction, perfectionism, low self-esteem, people pleasing. And some of the emotions manifested through codependency is fear, anxiety, depression, despair, and hopelessness. Now, I know that was a lot, but I could probably check off about everything on that list. Like, I don't even know where to start. This episode is actually kind of hard for me. I feel myself struggling with this episode because this stuff is so deep. It's deeper than having a conversation. It's deeper than just talking about it. And it's at the root of my trauma, and so I don't even know where to start. But you know what? Let me just take a breather. Let me calm down and get myself together. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. The main things that I could identify with is external validation, fear of abandonment, people pleasing, and perfectionism. So, to dive a little deeper into my childhood and me being a very emotional child and requiring a lot of attention, I feel like I didn't get the nurture that I needed to fully not only understand my emotions, but also feel safe. And so, as I grew older, I realized that I started to love myself through the way that I looked, through the way that I dressed, having money, or, using others to feel loved. And it's very painful because you're not operating from a place of authenticity. You're not operating from a place of love. You're operating from a place of hurt. And so I just ran wild. And you'd be surprised the things you would do, just to fulfill a void. Like I really literally took it to the extreme. I mean, just going places that, I had no business being, and spending money that I didn't have to spend, all just for a temporary feeling, to feel temporary things that in the end always made me feel even sadder and made me feel even worse, because I knew that I was all the energy that I was putting into the external things was only taken away from the internal battle that I was facing. And I found myself, in and out of relationships. I found myself overextending myself to make people happy. I found myself not putting my needs first, and also being a perfectionist, because if I think I'm perfect, then I have nothing to be sad about. If I think I'm perfect, then of course I love myself because nothing is wrong with me, when that's quite frankly not the truth. External things cannot help you love yourself. It's just an additive to what you love about yourself. I also faced a lot of depression growing up, and I didn't know that this was depression. I didn't know because no one taught me these things. No one, self care and self love wasn't an immediate conversation that was had. I'm sorry, yeah, I had to take a quick moment to myself. I feel a little overwhelmed, and, I don't feel like I'm speaking from the heart. It's just so much going on in my mind right now. This is really actually hard for me, and it makes me so emotional because of how much this means to me. And nothing is coming out how I want it to come out, and my thoughts are not flowing. So let's just get right back into it. I want to go back to talking about codependency and depression. I just wanted to be loved as a kid. I really did. And it was really hard for me because my mom had to work, and, she was tired and angry. And so she didn't have time to fully nurture and care for us. I'm not the only child. And so, that made things even more difficult, I'm sure, on her part. But for me, it just felt so dark, because understanding, well, not understanding as a little girl, why this person is so mean, or why is this person so angry, and you just want love from this person. You just want love from your parents, whoever it is that took care of you. You just want these people to listen to you and love you and show you how to exist in the world. And so from those critical time frames of from a newborn to a toddler to a 5 to 7 year old, those are critical moments. And I don't think a lot of parents realize how critical that is for their child, because this is teaching me how to love. You're showing me my worth. You're showing me what it is that is to come. And not that that may be true, but because you are the person who, quite frankly, is teaching me how to be a human being, I'm going to believe you subconsciously. And that's another thing that we have to realize, that even if you don't consciously think this way, subconsciously, some things are already embedded in you from a little girl or a little boy. And when you go into the world and you have these interactions with other people and you feel bitter, you feel resentful, you feel jealous, you feel envy, and you feel like you have to go out your way to make people love you. But in the front of your mind, you're thinking, I'm this, I'm that. I love how I look. I love how I dress. I'm the best they ever had. And reality is that your subconscious mind don't think that and don't believe that, and that's why you act the way you act. And I've learned through my experiences that as much as I went out into the world and put on that mask and tried to become this person to mask the pain that I was feeling, I couldn't run from that. And people could say whatever they want to say, they could do whatever they want to do. What you can't run from is the pain that is truly, truly inside of you. Even if you say you don't care, or, you're independent, the fact of the matter is that everybody deserves to be loved. And what I realized looking back was that I became very depressed. I became very angry. And when I went out into the world, I made a lot of mistakes. And I was searching for a feeling that I couldn't get from my mother or my father. And that actually made me suffer more, because you out into the world looking for something that was never meant to be found outside of you. This love was always supposed to be already in you from birth. And unfortunately, that's our parents' job. So these people who take care of us since we're kids, we have to rely on them to care for us and love us in a way that's actually going to help us go into the real world and love ourselves. Another thing that deeply affected me through my codependency was trying to change and fix people. Whew, that is a word for somebody. How many of us feel so much lack within ourselves that we have the nerve of us really to go out and try to fix somebody else when we don't even know how to be who we are. So imagine saying, I don't like who I am and I see all of my faults in you. So instead of trying to help me, I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to help you. Is it really help? No, it's not, because it's not coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of resources. You don't even have the resources. I think the worst part about all of this was that it made me become a serial dater. I went through so many different friends with benefits, so many different situationships, so many different relationships, because I was desperate. And I knew that if I could get someone to love me, then I'll be all right. And it just simply wasn't true. And through serial dating, when we use people to love ourselves or to feel good about ourselves, we end up in toxic cycles. As you try to get that void fulfilled, we start to believe the lies that we convince ourselves of, which prolongs our suffering and invites another party to suffer along with us. And that's called trauma bonding. Then we usually end up thinking we are the victim when someone doesn't want to confirm the fantasy person we made up to help us sustain the image that we're trying to sustain. And instead of doing the inner work and peeling back those layers, which is not easy, but it's necessary, we rather start a new cycle, a new relationship, and meet a new person who can help us see ourselves as the person we rather see ourselves as, not the person that we truly are. Ultimately, we end up never feeling content, always looking for more, and completely disconnected from ourselves. That is not self-love. That is not boundaries. And it's not doing what's best for you. It's running away from the truth and seeking it in others instead of yourself. And also trying to hold everybody else accountable for yourself instead of confronting the lack that you feel and the pain that you feel, which is valid pain. It's valid, It's not wrong to feel insecure. It's not wrong to not like things about yourself. It's not wrong to want to love other people either. But we have to love ourselves first. We have to know who we are first so that we can be successful in our pursuit of others. The last few decades, what am I talking about? I'm 27 years old. The last 2 decades of my life definitely evolved around codependency and serial dating. I literally pulled myself away from my dreams. I pulled myself away from happiness. I pulled myself away from growth and healing. Every time I stepped into a new relationship, every time I put the needs of others before mine, hoping that I would feel a little bit more loved, hoping that I would like myself more. And it just simply never worked. And what I learned through these experiences and through these relationships is that, we're all seeking this connection, and that connection is within us. So whatever it is that you're feeling and want to feel, you're probably feeling it because you don't know what that's like to feel it for you. And that's why we love so hard. And that's why we have a big heart. And that's why we wear our heart on our sleeves. And that's why we hurt ourselves and break our own heart. We got to take responsibility for the part that we played in getting our heart broken and ending up in situations that was no good for us, or staying in situations that were no good for us. And also realizing that sometimes we are no good to ourselves. Like the things that I've done to me, I could just look back and be like, you sure? Like, how if it was two of me and we was talking, I'd just be looking at the other me like, what's going on? We all right? You out here and you wilding. Yeah. Why you want to do that? Why do you act like that? We got to confront ourselves sometimes. Like, literally, I talk to myself all the time. Me personally, I'm in here and I'm talking to myself. Like, are you crazy? I have to ask myself that a lot of the times. Sometimes simply off the thoughts that I be thinking. Like, why would you even think that? It's crazy. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the best love you will ever receive will come from you first, if it doesn't come from your parents first. And I pray, that whatever happened to you as a child and the love that you were robbed of, that you can find that in yourself. And you don't look to other people to take on that task and put your happiness in the hands of somebody else, and put your happiness in your success and the things that you can do externally for yourself. How many of us don't even feel like we deserve to be loved? Let's talk about that. A lot of the times the love was conditional. So the only time you were praised was when you got good grades. The only time you were praised was when you did something excellent and extravagant. The only time you were praised was when you looked really nice. It wasn't just you were loved because you were you. And what I also learned was that I found in myself that I started to love myself with conditions. And imagine that. Imagine having conditions on yourself. So the only time I felt worthy was when I was stable in my finances, when I felt like I was dressing the best, when I felt like my face was the clearest, when my hair was the longest, and when everybody loved me and knew me. That's when I felt love for myself. And that's conditional because all of those things are fleeting. So the minute that you don't have money, there goes your self-love. The minute that you don't have a partner to make you feel loved, and that person walks away and leaves you, there goes your self-love. The moment when you're not getting 100 likes on Instagram, There goes your self-love. So we have to be mindful of the conditions that we place on ourselves to confirm that we are worthy of love. Because when those conditions are no longer available, now we're back to this dark, low place. So learning to love yourself in those low places is actually the best way to program your brain to understanding that you are worthy of love regardless. So if you had a hard time validating yourself as a child and getting validated as a child from your parents, then you probably need to reprogram your subconscious mind. Everything that I used to use as a tool to love myself, God kept taking from me time and time again. Like, one thing about God is He's going to teach you a lesson, and He's also going to give you the opportunity and space to see when you're ready. So when you tell yourself that you're ready and you convince yourself that you're better, God is definitely going to open up that door. So if you say, I'm ready to be in a relationship, I'm ready to be faithful, I'm ready to be a good person, God is going to send somebody. And that is a trial and error to see if you are who you say you are. And every time God sent me some money, every time God sent me a person, I failed terribly. The good thing about God is that He uses everything. So, nothing's going to go to waste. There's always going to be a lesson. There's always going to be some growth in everything that you do. And to get better is to practice at it. But I can't tell you how many times God done blessed me and I found myself back in the same cycle over and over and over again. I mean, still until this day, I'm just now, really getting to that place where I'm like, oh my God, I am sick and tired of this. As much as I want to say in the past that, I was sick and tired, I really wasn't. I wasn't, because anytime an opportunity came for me to deprioritize my needs and not put myself first, I took it. And that's a part of growth. And I'm learning to forgive myself as well, to say, we messed up. We made a lot of mistakes and we did things to hurt us. Speaking in third person, like, I did things to hurt us. And I apologize for that. I'm sorry that I allowed people to treat you any kind of way. I'm sorry that you've treated people any kind of way. I'm sorry that we had to go through all of this torture to look for something that was already always in us. I'm sorry that you spent a lot of time and energy trying to convince people to love you and trying to convince yourself that you are loved. We got to be honest with ourselves and apologize to ourselves and say, I'm sorry that I put us through that. So now that we kind of went through the motions of codependency, serial dating, and all the things that come with that, which was a lot and is very heavy to talk about, but I'm proud of myself. I want to talk about self-care. Woo. I didn't know self-care from an early age. When I say a lot of the stuff that I've been through, experiencing to this day and healing from, is since I was a little girl. So you can imagine how heavy this is and why it's so hard for me to talk about these things. So I wasn't very attentive of being mindful of getting rest, being mindful of how I take care of my body, being mindful of the foods that I put in my body, taking showers and stuff like that, which might sound crazy, but it's true. Especially when we're depressed, our body literally wants to do nothing, like nothing at all, not even brush our teeth. So a good step to learning to love yourself is taking care of yourself. Make sure that you're getting good rest. Make sure that you are eating foods that are nutritious and energizing your body, instead of eating things that make you feel more heavy and more tired. Put your needs first. Put your goals first. Even if you don't have the energy and even if you feel sad, just do something little by little. If you have to do one thing a day, I promise you over time, that 1% will turn into 30%. And it's better to be at 30 than to be at 1. I promise you that. And then eventually it will become who you are, to where you won't have to think about it, or you won't have to force yourself to do anything. But you do first have to start, even if that's taking 10 more minutes in the shower, or journaling for 5 minutes a day, or writing one sentence on the page. drinking tea, meditating, definitely getting good sleep. I'm telling you, rest is a gift. You can't do nothing if you're not well rested, and you won't be your best self if you're not well rested, and you also make poor decisions if you're not well rested. So we should definitely prioritize and realize how important sleep is. And then I'm going to need you to think about what it is that you want out of this lifetime. I'm going to need you to think about that. What are your goals? What are the things that you want to manifest? What are the things that will make you happy? The small things, not just the big things. Once you figure out what those things are and you identify with those things, then you are subject to receiving those things. So the first step is identifying what those things are. For me personally, I just want to be more diligent with how I upkeep myself, because I wasn't always like that. I thought if I just had nice clothes, that was enough, but it's not true. And now that I'm way more attentive to my actual body and how I treat my body, I feel much better. A lot of things we manifest is a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So if you're always thinking negative thoughts, and if you're always not being optimistic about the future, then of course you're always going to feel stagnant. Of course you're always going to feel stuck. And of course nothing good is going to happen for you, because you don't even believe it for yourself. You don't even believe you deserve those type of things. So we have to be mindful of the way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we are thinking, because this is sending a message to the universe and telling the universe what it is that we want, even though we know that's not what we really want. So I just pray that you learn to love yourself, and not just subject loving yourself to becoming the best or being the best. Love yourself even when you're not your best. I'm learning that self-love and healing is not just becoming the best version of yourself, but letting the worst version of yourself be loved too. Healing is saying that every single version of you deserve love and admiration. Sometimes we have to let those characters die and let the ego die sometimes for us to get to the root of who we are and why we are the way we are. In conclusion, sometimes the love we crave is the love that we refuse to give ourselves. So don't be pulled by your fear of being alone. When you know how to be alone and love yourself, you know how to love another.